In the summer skies over Europe, two names became legends: the Spitfire and the Messerschmitt Bf 109. To the men who flew them, they weren't just machines. They were life and death wrapped in aluminum and adrenaline. Each side believed their fighter ruled the heavens. But who truly did? It's 1939. Europe stands on the edge of destruction. The age of propellers is reaching its peak. And in Britain and Germany, two men, both visionaries, both stubborn dreamers, are unknowingly crafting the symbols of their nations. Will to fight, the birth of legends. The British called him Mitchell, Reginald J. Mitchell, an engineer who believed airplanes should be as elegant as they were deadly. He wasn't a soldier, not a pilot. He was a designer born near the River Trent, who once built racing seaplanes that shattered world speed records. In 1934, as Nazi Germany rearmed, the British Air Ministry issued a challenge. Design a fighter that could fly 300 miles per hour. Climb fast and fire hard. Mitchell's answer was unlike anything Britain had seen. A sleek, elliptical-winged beauty with perfect aerodynamics. It looked fast even when standing still. He called it the Supermarine Spitfire. Across the Channel, in Germany, another engineer worked under far more dangerous conditions. His name, Willy Messerschmitt. Messerschmitt was not a man who bowed to authority easily. He clashed with Nazi officials, even with Göring himself. But his genius was undeniable. He created the Bf 109, a machine built not for grace, but for pure lethal efficiency. The 109 was angular, aggressive, a bird of prey compared to the Spitfire's swan-like beauty. Its frame was light, its engine powerful, its dive terrifying. To the Luftwaffe, it was perfection. To its pilots, it was both friend and foe, easy to love, hard to master. Two fighters, two philosophies. One would defend freedom. The other would hunt to dominate. But neither side knew that their designs, born in quiet workshops, would soon clash above the burning cities of Europe, in a duel that would define the future of air warfare. The storm gathers. September 1st, 1939 war erupts. Germany invades Poland. The Bf 109s lead the assault, slicing through the Polish skies, tearing apart outdated biplanes in minutes. The world watches in horror as the Luftwaffe's Blitzkrieg sweeps across Europe. Speed, coordination, precision. The Messerschmitt is the spearhead of Hitler's lightning war. Britain is not yet in the fight, but they're watching, and they know their Spitfires and Hurricanes will soon face a test like no other. The Battle of France. May 1940. The skies over France roar with chaos. The Luftwaffe dominates, wave after wave of Messerschmitts. Escort bombers as they crush Allied positions. British pilots rush across the Channel to help. Many fly Hurricanes, rugged, dependable, but slower than the German 109s. But among them, a few gleaming Spitfires take flight. For the first time, the two legends meet. Squadron leader Alan Deere remembers the first encounter vividly. He dives on a Messerschmitt, the sun glinting off his canopy. Bullets tear through the air, tracer rounds streak by. The 109 rolls, dives, Deere follows. Two men, two machines, one sky. Seconds feel like hours. Deere fires, and the Messerschmitt bursts into flame. That day, Britain learned something vital. The Spitfire could fight and win. The Battle of Britain begins. July 1940. France has fallen. Now only Britain stands. Hitler turns his gaze west. To invade, he must first control the skies. And so begins one of history's most desperate duels, the Battle of Britain. Every day, German bombers cross the Channel, escorted by deadly Messerschmitts. Every day, British Spitfires and Hurricanes rise to meet them. Over Dover, over Kent, over London, thousands of young men dance with death at 20,000 feet. Sound, dogfight chaos, machine guns, radio chatter, oxygen masks, breathing. To the pilots, each second is eternity. One wrong move, one missed turn, and gravity becomes your enemy. Who had the edge? The Bf 109E, faster in a dive, more climb power, deadly cannons. The Spitfire Memke, lighter on the turn, steadier at high speed with unmatched agility. It wasn't just a contest of machines. It was a contest of skill, endurance, and fear. German pilots had experience, veterans of Poland and France. British pilots had home advantage, fighting over their own fields, with parachutes dropping them back into battle again and again. The radio crackles. Bandits, 12 o'clock high! Engines roar. Guns blaze. Some days the RAF loses 20 men. Other days the Luftwaffe loses 30. The skies over southern England become a graveyard of heroes. The human cost. One British pilot later wrote, "It wasn't about fighting for glory. It was survival, a daily fight to see another sunset." At the height of the battle, the average lifespan of a new pilot was just 4 weeks. 4 weeks between flight school and a flaming fall to Earth. But they kept flying, because they believed, as Churchill said, that never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. By October 1940, the Luftwaffe had lost over 700 aircraft, Britain around 900. But Britain endured. The invasion never came. Aftermath of Britain's triumph. The Battle of Britain was not the end. It was the beginning. Both fighters evolved. The Spitfire gained new engines, longer range, more guns. The 109 gained heavier armor, faster climbs, and deadly cannon upgrades. But the rivalry didn't end over Dover. It spread down across the deserts of North Africa, the frozen steppes of Russia, and the blue skies of Malta. And that's where the forgotten battles of these machines would truly decide their fate. 1941. The skies are no longer ruled by the green fields of England, but by sand, salt, and sea. The war has shifted, and now the Spitfire and the Messerschmitt meet again, this time above the unforgiving deserts of North Africa. The Luftwaffe has come to support Rommel's Africa Corps. The British, defending Egypt and the Suez, are desperate for air superiority, and so the RAF sends its crown jewel, the Spitfire. But this isn't the green, humid air of Kent. This is blistering heat, swirling dust, engines choking on sand. Aircraft strain under the desert sun. Oil boils, guns jam. Still, they fly. The desert duels. It's May 1942. Over the Libyan desert, a formation of Spitfires climbs, sunlight glinting off their sand-colored wings. Above them, like hawks circling, the 109F's wait. Flight Lieutenant Neville Duke, one of the RAF's top aces, spots them. He pushes his stick forward, diving straight into the enemy formation. The Messerschmitts twist to meet him. The air is thick with bullets, dust clouds below, oil smoke above. In seconds, friend and foe blur into chaos. The Spitfires here are lighter than their European cousins. Their filters look like chin beards, a design born of necessity. The Messerschmitts, too, have evolved. The new Bf 109F. Faster, sleeker, deadlier. The duels in the desert are brutal and personal. No radar-controlled interceptions, just pilot versus pilot. Skill against survival. On one scorching afternoon, Duke's squadron meets a pack of German 109s over Tobruk. He takes a burst to the wing. His Spitfire shudders. Instruments flicker, but he fights on. He loops behind a 109, squeezes the trigger, and the German fighter explodes in a fiery arc, disappearing into the dunes. Later, Duke writes simply, "We were equals. The one who saw first, I lived." The Mediterranean front, Malta. Hundreds of miles north, another forgotten battle rages over the tiny island of Malta. A speck of rock in the Mediterranean, but vital to the entire war. Whoever controls Malta controls the supply routes to North Africa. For months, Malta is under siege. Day after day, German and Italian bombers rain destruction from above. And every day, a handful of Spitfires rise from crumbling runways to defend it. In early 1942, only a few Spitfires remain. Some are patched together with scrap metal and spare parts. Pilots sleep beside their planes, ready to scramble at dawn. One pilot writes in his diary, "We have no radar, no rest, no replacements, but we still fly." Then, salvation arrives. A British aircraft carrier, the USS Wasp, sails close enough to launch new Spitfires to Malta. They roar off the deck one by one. Operation Bowery. 32 Spitfires. A lifeline of wings. From that moment, the tide turns. The Spitfires, now led by men hardened by Britain and Africa, begin to win the skies. They ambush the Messerschmitts, intercept the bombers, and by mid-1942, Malta holds firm. Malta's defenders, starved, exhausted, nearly broken, have beaten the Luftwaffe's might. Their Spitfires, sun-faded and bullet-scarred, become legends of defiance. The Eastern Front, a different sky. But while the world remembers Britain and Malta, another front burns far away on the Eastern Front. And there, the Messerschmitt meets an entirely different kind of enemy. When Germany invades the Soviet Union in 1941, the Bf 109 becomes the Luftwaffe's workhorse. From Leningrad to Stalingrad, it dominates the first years of the campaign. Pilots like Hans-Joachim Marseille, the Star of Africa, and Erich Hartmann, the Black Devil, carved their names into history. Marseille alone claims over 150 kills, many against Spitfires and P-40s in Africa. Hartmann will go on to score 352 victories, more than any pilot in history. But it's not just the skill of the German pilots, it's the machine itself. The Bf 109G Gustav, a brutal, ironclad evolution of its predecessor. Heavier armor, more powerful engine, 20mm cannons in its nose. It's less agile but deadlier. Meanwhile, the Spitfire keeps evolving too. MKV, MK9, MKFT, each a response to new German threats. It becomes faster, climbs higher, fights longer. And so, as the war stretches on, both machines are locked in a deadly dance of innovation, one improving only to counter the other. The battle over Dieppe, 1942. August 1942. The Allied raid on the French port of Dieppe, a disaster on the ground, but a crucial test in the air. The RAF sends hundreds of Spitfires to cover the invasion. The Luftwaffe responds with equal fury. Squadrons of Bf 109s and FW 1-90s diving in from the clouds. For hours, the sky becomes a boiling cauldron of smoke and fire. It's one of the largest single-day air battles of the war. When it's over, the Allies lose nearly 100 aircraft. The Germans at around 50. Tactically, the raid fails. But the Spitfires improved. Engines and armaments prove they can now meet the Messerschmitts on equal terms. Each pilot walks away from the fight knowing, the next time they meet, it will be deadlier still. The evolution of power. By 1943, the world's skies have changed. The Spitfire and Messerschmitt, both icons of early war, are now joined by new monsters. The American P-51 Mustang, the German Fu-190. But still, the rivalry lives. The Spitfire MK9, sleek, supercharged by the Rolls-Royce Merlin 61, can climb and dive like never before. The Messerschmitt G and K series, and faster than ever. Bristling with guns designed to shoot down bombers and Mustangs alike. It's no longer about superiority, it's survival. Every pilot knows the odds are shrinking. Every flight could be his last. The evolution of power. By 1943, the world's skies have changed. The Spitfire and Messerschmitt, both icons of early war, are now joined by new monsters. The American P-51 Mustang, the German Fu-190. But still, the rivalry lives. The personal war. On both sides, legends are born. British ace Johnny Johnson, a calm, precise flyer, becomes one of the RAF's deadliest Spitfire pilots. German ace Adolf Galland, once Hitler's favorite, commands entire fighter wings from within the cockpit of his 109. Galland once said, "The Spitfire was the only aircraft that gave me the feeling of being faced with an equal adversary." Johnson, years later, replied in his memoir, "Galland's Messerschmitt could dive and climb, but in a turn we had him." The rivalry wasn't born of hatred, it was born of respect. Each man knew the other risked his life in the same cold, thin air, and both believed their machine was the best. The turning tide. By 1944, the tide of war has turned. The Luftwaffe is battered, exhausted, and outnumbered. Fuel shortages cripple training. New German pilots enter combat with barely 20 flight hours. Against them stand veteran Spitfire and Mustang pilots with years of experience. The Bf 109 is still fast, still deadly, but it's no longer the hunter. Now it's the hunted. As Allied bombers pound German cities, the Messerschmitt pilots scramble to intercept, often outnumbered 10-1. The Spitfires now escort the bombers deep into Europe. Over Berlin, over the Rhine, the once feared Luftwaffe fights with fading strength. The duel that began as equals now turns into tragedy. Young German boys facing seasoned Allied veterans in outdated machines. The sky, once a playground for heroes, has become a graveyard for youth. The new age. In the final year of the war, the Messerschmitt engineers do something unthinkable. They invent the future. The Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter, takes flight. It's faster than anything alive, faster than a Spitfire, faster than a bullet. But it comes too late. Germany is collapsing. Factories bombed, fuel gone, pilots few. The Spitfire continues to soar, now over Normandy, over Holland, over a dying Reich. The war that began with two dreamers. Machines ends with the world entering a new era, the jet age. By 1945, thousands of Spitfires and Messerschmitts lie silent in hangars and fields. Their pilots, the few who survived, return home to quiet lives. Some become farmers, others teachers. But they carry with them the sound of that sky, the scream of engines, the rattle of guns, the heartbeat of history. The war is over. Europe lies in ruins. The skies that once roared with dogfights now fall silent. But the question still lingers. Who truly ruled those skies? Was it the elegant Spitfire, the defender of Britain, symbol of freedom and courage, or the ruthless Messerschmitt, the blade of the Blitzkrieg, the weapon of an empire that almost conquered Europe? Narrator, calmly. To answer that, we have to look beyond the numbers, beyond the propaganda, beyond the myths, the scorebook of history. In raw numbers, the Messerschmitt Bf 109 wins hands down. Over 33,000 built, more than any fighter in history. It fought on every front, in every weather, from the first day of the war to the very last. It claimed more aerial victories than any aircraft ever made, mostly by German aces like Erich Hartmann, Gerhard Barkhorn, and Günther Rall. The Spitfire? Around 20,000 built across 24 versions. From the original MK that fought over Britain to the Griffin-powered Mk-14 that tore through the skies in 1945. It, too, fought everywhere. From the Channel to Burma, and long after the war, it continued to serve proudly in air forces around the world. But the numbers don't tell the soul of the story, the spirit of flight. Ask any pilot, British, German, or American, and they'll tell you the Spitfire felt alive. Its controls were light, sensitive, almost telepathic. It didn't just respond, it anticipated. German pilots who captured Spitfires in France described the sensation as flying a bird, smooth, effortless, graceful. It could turn tighter than anything in the sky. But ask those same men about the Messerschmitt, and their tone changes. The 109 wasn't beautiful, it was brutal. A knife edge, unforgiving but powerful. It demanded precision, it punished mistakes. One pilot once said, "The Spitfire caressed the air. The Messerschmitt attacked it. The men behind the machines." Every machine's legacy is carried by those who flew it. And those men were more than just pilots. They were the face of nations. For the British, the Spitfire pilot was a hero, a symbol of defiance. Young men with little training, barely out of school, standing against overwhelming odds. They became the few. For the Germans, the Messerschmitt pilot was the embodiment of skill and honor. They weren't fighting for freedom, they were fighting for survival. For comradeship, for duty, Erich Hartmann, the Blonde Knight, scored 352 aerial victories, almost all in the 109. But when captured by the Soviets, he refused to fly for them. He spent 10 years in a prison camp. When released, he became a flight instructor, still loyal to the idea of the pure pilot, not the politics. Johnny Johnson, Britain's top Spitfire ace, ended the war with 38 kills. Afterward, he trained NATO pilots and wrote of his German adversaries with respect, not hate. He said, "The men we fought were not monsters. They were men like us, caught in the storm. Forgotten battles, forgotten heroes. While the world remembers the Battle of Britain, thousands of dogfights were fought elsewhere, forgotten by history, but no less heroic. In Burma, Spitfires dueled Japanese Oscars in brutal heat and monsoon rain. In Italy, they escorted bombers over mountain valleys, sometimes vanishing into the clouds and never returning. And on the Eastern Front, Messerschmitt pilots fought until their fuel tanks were dry and their ammunition gone. Surrounded and outnumbered, flying until the last moment. For every ace we remember, 100 young men vanished into smoke and fire, their names lost to time. Their last view, the endless blue sky, the legacy of design. Technically, both machines were masterpieces. The Spitfire's elliptical wings, designed to minimize drag, made it a marvel of engineering. Its Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, fine-tuned like a violin, became one of the most famous engines in history. The Messerschmitt, on the other hand, was revolutionary in simplicity. Its modular design meant it could be built fast, repaired fast, and adapted endlessly. It was the engineer's fighter, efficient, lethal, scalable. Even after the war, these designs lived on. Spain built its own version of the 109, the HA-1112, powered by British Merlin engines. Ironically, the rival's heart beat inside its old foe. And those Spanish-built 109s? They starred in movies, playing both friend and enemy in films like The Battle of Britain itself. History, it seems, has a sense of humor. The world after. When the war ended, the Spitfire became a symbol of peace. It flew victory parades, trained young aviators, and raced across the post-war sky. Its roar became a sound of pride, not fear. The Messerschmitt name, though, was buried for a time, shadowed by its association with the Nazi regime. But even then, the engineers continued, designing gliders, jets, and eventually modern airliners. The mind that built the 109 never stopped dreaming of flight. Who really ruled the skies? So, who ruled the skies? The answer isn't found in performance charts or kill counts. It's found in what these machines meant. Narrator, steady reflective. The Messerschmitt ruled the skies of conquest, swift, efficient, unstoppable. But the Spitfire ruled the skies of survival, graceful, enduring, and free. One fought to dominate the world. The other fought to save it. In the end, both did what they were built to do. To give their pilots a chance to live, to fight another day, to carve their stories into the clouds, the final flight. Today, a few of them still fly. You can hear their engines at air shows, the deep growl of the Merlin, the sharp whistle of the Daimler-Benz. 80 years later, they still turn heads, still stir hearts. Veterans who stand beneath them often weep, not because of the machines, but because of the memories. The friends who never came back, the youth that vanished into the smoke. When those engines roar, the past lives again. For a brief moment, the world remembers what it cost to rule the skies. Closing words. The Spitfire and the Messerschmitt were never just planes. They were reflections of nations, of people, of purpose. The Spitfire will forever symbolize courage against the impossible. The Messerschmitt, brilliance trapped in the wrong cause. Together, they wrote one of history's greatest rivalries. And though time has buried their pilots and their factories have long fallen silent, their echoes still linger in every gust of wind that sweeps across an empty airfield. Two legends, one sky, and a question that will forever soar above history. Who really ruled the skies? Perhaps they both did.